In this video, I'm going to show you multiple main keyboard sections in Reaper. Now there's a new feature that's been added to Reaper 7. If you're using an older version, you're not going to have this functionality. But it's one of my favorite features that's been added to Reaper 7, as it allows us to create multiple workflows with different keyboard shortcuts to trigger in each. So if we go up here to the Actions menu, Show Action List, we can see all the actions that trigger functions in Reaper. As you can see, there's a lot of them. And we can see all the keyboard shortcuts assigned to them. If we click over here, here are the keyboard shortcuts that are either assigned by default or I change them for my use. But now, in Reaper 7, we don't just have this main section. We now have 16 new alt sections that we could use for different workflows with completely different keyboard shortcuts for each. Let's take a look at some examples. But before we do that, we should check out some actions that go with this. If we type into the filter, main action, we can see over here a bunch of actions that are going to trigger either toggling the override for Alt 1 through 16. We can also do it momentarily, which will switch the keyboard sections just for a second, and then switch back to the default again. But we're going to focus on toggling them completely each time. And we could add keyboard shortcuts to do this. Let's add one for Alt 1, and another for Alt 2. So we can trigger these keyboard shortcuts to toggle to Alt 1, Alt 2, and back to the default again, or the main section. Now the alt sections start off with default keyboard shortcuts, as you can see right here, and also in Alt 2. But obviously we could change them, but we could also start fresh with them with no keyboard shortcuts assigned. We go down here to the key map and remove all shortcuts from this section. Then we can start out fresh with the alt section with no keyboard shortcuts assigned. Or we could put it back to the default right here, or copy them from the main section we already created with our custom keyboard shortcuts. So we can start from there and change them that way. And we'll do it for Alt 1 and Alt 2. Choose this, copy main section shortcuts to current section. This way we start at the same place, and we'll just change what we need. And we could also rename the sections over here. But we're not going to do that just now. But as an example, let's say we can use Alt 1 for video editing. And typically, when we edit video, when we hit play and then stop, we want the playhead to stay where we stopped it or left it. So we can start from that point when we hit play again. But by default, Reaper doesn't do that. It puts the playhead back at the original start point each time, which makes sense for music, but not as much for video editing. Hitting stop puts the cursor back where we started. But if we want that functionality for the video section, we could switch it to Alt 1, find shortcut, type the spacebar, which takes us right here to play stop, and switch it to this action, which will move the edit cursor on stop. Basically, more like a video editor does. So we'll change it in the Alt 1 section to be the spacebar for this action instead. And now, if we switch it to Alt 1 using that keyboard shortcut, we hit play. If we hit stop, our cursor stops right there. So we'll play from there going forward. And also, I like to open up the video window when I'm working with video. So if we search in the filter for video, we could see there's a keyboard shortcut already assigned to do that, but it requires adding some modifiers to it. Instead, being that Alt-1 is dedicated to video, we could delete it and change it to just V, which replaces opening up the volume envelope on our tracks. So if we turn off the Alt-1 section, it goes back to the main keyboard section. If we select a track and type V, it opens up volume automation for that track, which is the default. But now we can turn on Alt-1, hit V, and it opens up our video window. Hit it again to close it, hit play. Our cursor stops where we stopped play, and we could play from there. Which again is more typical of a workflow for video editing. But now let's create one for mixing. We'll use Alt-2. Now typically, if we type S in our items, it's going to split our items. And if we type M in the ruler, it creates a marker in our ruler. But we could change this behavior to soloing and muting if we create a mixing section, which again, we'll use Alt-2. We'll go to Alt-2. We'll type into the filter, solo select track. Now we could use S for soloing our tracks in the Alt-2 section. Let's assign it to S. It overwrites splitting our items. We'll do the same for muting, but we'll use M, which overwrites creating markers. But again, it's only going to happen in the Alt-2 section. So now, with the main keyboard section still used, if we type S, we're still splitting our items. If we type M, we're still creating markers. But now, we can hit the keyboard shortcut to switch to Alt-2, and I could select the drums, type S, and we're soloing the drums. Hit it again to unsolo them, hit M to mute them. And again, if we switch it back or turn off Alt-2, we get back the main or default functions, where we could split our items or create markers with the M key. So we get 3 different workflows to choose from, but really 16 or 17 different workflows. But instead of using keyboard shortcuts, I prefer to use toolbar buttons. So we can right click up here, customize toolbar, go down here to add, and instead of using the keyboard shortcuts to switch on different keyboard sections, we could select them, add them in here. Let's add a separator. Let's add toolbar buttons so we know what these keyboard sections do. This one was for video. I'll right click and choose this toolbar button. And for this one, I'll choose this mixer. So now they're going to show up like this. And we'll see them up here. And with both of them turned off, our transport works like the default, where it starts from the beginning each time. And typing V opens up the volume envelope. But we could switch it to video. And now, hitting stop stops the cursor or playhead right there. And typing V opens up our video window. And turning it off turns off that functionality. But also, we could hit the mixer button, which switches to Alt-2, and now we can select our drums, type S, and we're soloing the drums. Or muting them with M. And again, we can switch it back. So the S key splits our items, and the M key creates our markers. So as you can see, it's very easy to create multiple keyboard sections with multiple keyboard shortcuts in each, creating custom workflows for every different way you prefer to work. So that's pretty much it. That's multiple main keyboard sections in Reaper. Hope you learned something, hope you could use it, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.
Bingo, boys, let's go.